Alrighty, welcome everybody to our 39th episode of Brownsville Tech Live. And this is the first episode which we are streaming to Twitch, which is our sixth social media platform. So for those of you that are watching on FaceTube and YouTube and Spotify, you can catch us there both on audio and video. And for those of you driving tomorrow that missed the show, you can catch us on Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And for any gamers out there, we're on Twitch now. So, very multi points of watching the show. And tonight we've got a great episode. We've got Indy and I didn't catch your name, your first name?
Martine.
Martine from Southwest Solar Stores. They're here to talk to us about the Texas PowerTree. And as you all recall, we had an episode with Indy back a few months ago where we looked at solar energy alternatives. And now we're looking at the PowerTree as an alternative to the traditional solar panels that are typically installed. So, guys, welcome to our 39th episode. I'm honored to have both of you. And which one of you wants to take it away? Let's talk a little bit about solar energy, though, in a general sense. I know that the last time there were some questions after the show with regards to solar energy. So, can you give us a little bit of some feedback with regards to solar energy as an alternative to normal electricity?
Hey Daniel, thanks for the invite. Martine Navales with Southwest Solar Stores. I've been in the solar industry since 2002. So, with the Inflation Reduction Act, solar renewable ITC incentive tax credit has been extended through 2033. So the government, the current administration is very much in favor of green energy, green, clean, renewable energy. And so with as far as renewable energy, there's sun, and which there's an abundance of, especially in Texas, and it's free. I mean, excuse me, and it's available, And so now you just got to find a way to harness the renewable energy and to harness the DC, the direct current, which are the sun's rays, and convert them into AC, alternating current, which powers your house and everything that includes everything inside your house. And there's a huge push for green energy, and also with electric vehicles and everything else. And there's different ways to capture and harness clean, renewable sun. And you can go conventional rooftop, which a lot of homeowners have. And the downside about conventional rooftop is, depending, especially in Texas, with the composition shingles, which is made out of oil, you have to replace the shingles, the comp shingles. The manufacturer says every 25, 30 years, Owens
Right.
Corning and Malarkey. However, in Texas heat, I've found that you're looking more like 12 to 15 years.
Right.
And so it gets, and then if you have the conventional rooftop, Daniel, then you're going to have to uninstall the system, and depending on who uninstalls the system, it'll void out the warranty if a roofing company removes it and doesn't know what they're doing, and it can really mess up the system. So we found a different way as far as providing renewable energy without going on the roof, and that's the Texas PowerTrees.
Okay.
And what's nice about the Texas PowerTrees is it does everything that conventional rooftop does. At the same time, it minimizing space as far as a typical house in Texas, at least in Houston, is about 20 kWh, kilowatt hours. And so if you look at your electric bill, the utility companies charges you on a kWh per basis. So your house runs on kWh. And so what we do and other solar companies does is we calculate your consumption and then build you a system based on your consumption. And so what we do on the Texas PowerTrees, instead of a typical house in Houston, I'm in Houston right now. That's why I'm talking from Houston.
That's fine.
The typical house in Houston is 50 to 60 solar panels on your roof. First of all, a lot of houses, because of the pitch and the valleys and the angles on the roof, you can't accommodate 50 or 60 solar panels. And women historically are aesthetic, and they spend a lot of time getting their house beautiful and they're proud of it. And the last thing they want to see are conventional rooftop solar on top of the roof, especially if it's facing the front yard. Yeah. Men, on the other hand, we're a little bit more practical in the sense that if it saves me money and gets me off the grid, then that's okay.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you mentioned at the beginning here is you mentioned about the tax credits. And I was in another podcast last week. In fact, we were talking about electricity and the local utility company and the rates and people getting all kind of astronomical bills lately. And one of the things that they asked about was the rebates, whether the rebates or the tax credits were still there. And I actually got called to task because I was under the impression they had expired, but it turns out that the original tax credits were expiring this December, so I got called out over that. But now you're telling me that they're expanded to 2033.
Yes, sir. The Inflation Reduction Act has extended it, and they bumped it from 26% to 30%.
Right. Right.
Yes, sir.
So hypothetically, if, for example, and I know the cost is not 10,000, okay, but hypothetically, in just a whole amount, if something costs you 10,000, 30% of that is 3,000. So 3,000 would be your credit against the balance, correct?
Yes and no. There's a credit and a refund. And so not a lot of, like I said, we've been doing this since 2002. There's the difference between a credit and a refund is very simple. If you're a salary employee and you're getting income taxes withdrawn from every pay period, when you file your income tax, you will get a refund.
Okay.
And then off of that 30%, in this case, 3,000, using your example. If you're a self-employed 1099 independent contractor, where you have to write the government, Uncle Sam, a check every year. So let's say the check every year, let's say you owe them $5,000 in federal income tax, right? So they will offset the 3,000 and let you apply that towards the purchase of the solar system. Okay. And then so in that scenario, instead of writing out a check for 5,000, you're just writing out a check for 2,000.
2,000. Okay, I
yes,
see
sir.
what you're saying. But obviously, I was incorrect. They were going to expire at the end of the year, but now they've expanded because of this Inflation Act that you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Now, can we go a little bit into the technical specifics of how a typical solar configuration works? And I'm talking from the solar panel to where does it go inside the house? Is it stored somewhere on batteries? Is it sent back to the utility company? And oh, by the way, the other question is, do all utility companies buy back the electricity? So let's go through the technicalities of how it works for some of those viewers that may not be familiar, which most are not, unless you're a techie or a geek or a nerd that likes this kind of stuff. So,
okay, go ahead and break it down. I mean, that's a general. That's a great statement. It's a general statement. So there's a terminology called net metering, and net metering, what that simply states is this. If your system produces, I'm just using round numbers, in the course of a year, if your system produces 10,000 kilowatt hours, 10,000 kWh, and your house uses 8,000 kWh, kilowatt hours, then there's a net metering excess of 2,000 kWh, kilowatt hours. And so the utility company, depending on which utility company you're with, will buy back um, anywhere from 20 cents to the dollar ratio to a dollar ratio, just depending on the utility company. And
Okay.
then they'll credit that back to you. They'll either credit that back to you or write you a check once a year, and that's called your anniversary date or true up. And so, and just depending on where in Texas, it's all that's how net metering works.
Okay. Now, my question to you is, on a typical month to month of somebody who gets this kind of system installed, do they or do they not have an electric bill? Is the question.
You know, I can't speak for other companies, but what we normally do is we take if you're on a net metering program, we take your average for the year, okay, and build you a system off based on that average. During the summer, you're going to consume more than you generate.
Correct.
And so that's about 4 months out of the year. And then 8 months out of the year, you're going to generate more than you consume. So, and that's where it trades off. And so just depending what kind of system when we design a system, Daniel, we design for about 110, 115% excess factor, a cushion, for lack of better words. And so, to answer your question, a lot of our clients, they have no bill. Okay. They have a zero bill, and then they get money back at the end of the year.
Okay.
Now, but here's a misconception. So let's say your average kilowatt system is 30 kWh a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we build you a system based on a 30 kWh system, a day system, and then all of a sudden homeowners are they're thinking, okay, we have a solar system, so instead of putting our AC at 75, let's drop it down to 65, and then all of a sudden they get a huge bill thinking, well, our system doesn't work. Yes, it does work. We calculated your consumption and gave you an excess 10 to 15%. And then then when it's cold during the winter months, then you're going to get all that back as far as the system's going to generate more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's one of the questions that I think always is asked, will I have an electric bill? Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm here in my neighborhood. Every time I get my electric bill, I'm always running above the network average, but then I've got computer servers here, like 5 of them running constantly, and all kinds of stuff. So I'm the above average user than most people here in the neighborhood. But I guess the question from a power consumption standpoint, is the solar option capable of powering an entire house? We're talking that will sustain cooking, cleaning, showering, um, those kind of activities. I mean, you've got your water heater and your AC, which I think are the biggest are the biggest devices that consume the most electricity, I would think. So, is this solution capable of handling that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, a lot of our clients, have excess energy and on net metering,
Okay.
and yeah, absolutely.
Now, Now, let's talk a little bit about the energy. So let's say you've got a bright sunny day one day, and like today here in Brownsville, it was dark and gloomy the entire day and it rained. In fact, it's been 2 days. Um, how long does a typical house last on solar? And I assume that there's a mechanism to kick in the electricity from the grid when the power falls. Can you kind of
On cloudy days, it's called incandescent light. On cloudy days, as soon as the sun pops up, uh, depending on what kind of inverter systems your house has, there's different types. There's microinverters, which are direct instant DC to AC conversion, and then there's also string inverters, which takes a little bit longer and it has to travel to the inverter. And the downside about the string inverters are you'll lose power, you'll lose percentage of power, and for that instance. And so yeah, just answer your question. Yes, your daily electrical consumption should not change.
So, is there any battery storage in the house? And the reason I'm asking this question is because my neighbor's house is smaller than mine. In fact, when they were first building it, I was trying to figure out why in the world they were building that house because it was just small. And once they went to solar, I was telling my wife, well, where do they store the batteries? Now, I know that Indy mentioned back in the podcast back earlier, I think it was March or April, I can't remember, that Tesla had some kind of battery that was wall mounted or something. You mentioned inverters, and I know that inverter takes the current DC to AC and so forth. So is it panels, inverter, storage, or is it panels, inverter, outlets? Which one is it? Because the whole point is I don't know where the hell his battery is, and I'm still trying to figure this out. That's why I'm asking.
So the way batteries work is this. Depending on like we could talk about our system, the Texas PowerTrees. Yeah. So when we used microinverters, right? And so during the day, the DC load, because of the microinverters, the DC load goes directly to the AC load, right? Okay. And then all the excess, Daniel, gets stored into the batteries. Okay. And so when the sun goes down, usually peak sun hours in Texas is 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. or 6 hours. Okay. And I can send you the link as far as there's a great article where it shows, depending on what state you are, how much direct sunlight you get. And Texas ranks right around third behind California and New Mexico and Arizona. Okay. And so Texas gets on the average about 6 hours of sun, which is excellent. Ohio, Northeast Michigan, they get about 2.5 to 3 hours, or maybe 4 hours of sun a day, which is not, it's not as much. And so to answer your question on batteries, the way it works and the way it's set up, you can set it up so many different ways. But the way our power trees are set up is we draw from the DC load to the AC load during the day. All the excess gets stored in the batteries. Okay. And then during at night, the batteries kick in. Okay. So we specialize our primary goal is off grid. Okay. So the way it works is you got the DC load to the AC, and then the excess goes to the battery. And then if and when the battery gets drained, then it'll kick in to the grid. Okay. And then every day it recycles itself. Okay. So incandescent light, if it's cloudy or if it's overcast, that's okay, because of the microinverters. They're actually more effective, I should say. They're more effective than traditional string inverters. Okay. And the problem with string inverters, Daniel, is this: just like a Christmas tree, if one of the Christmas tree lights goes out on a string inverter, for the most part, your whole tree is down. Mm. Okay. For the most part, your whole tree is down. Where on a microinverter, each panel, or in our case, each branch has a microinverter attached to it. Okay. So a typical our trees, our Texas PowerTrees has 12 branches, so they'll have an inverter per branch. Okay. And so what's the advantage of ours, because of modern technology and our engineering team, if one of our branches, let's say branch number 8 is partially covered, we subdivide all of our branches into zones. So we got the north quadrant, south quadrant, east quadrant, and west quadrant. So let's say the south quadrant has shading issues on it. That's okay, because the north, south, and east are still working. So we minimize the shading issues, and also we, for the most part, eliminated this tree, the entire branches going down, or the tree. Where if you have a string inverter, and just depending on which manufacturers, and I've had experience with so many of them, like Solar Edge for one. Solar Edge, they've been around for a while, and not to point fingers, but in my opinion, they're horrible, because if it's shaded, the whole tree's down.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what we've done is I've flipped over to our 3 guest screen, and we've got Southwest Solar Store's website. And obviously, for everybody out there, their traditional installation has been this, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So this has been the installation that we've seen here in Brownsville quite a bit.
That's conventional rooftop. Yes, sir.
Yes. So basically, these panels go on top of your roof. And what we're talking about here tonight is basically the Texas PowerTree. And you want to talk a little bit about the Texas PowerTree? I know there's some points here highlighted, but could you talk a little bit about the PowerTree? And we've got some pictures here, obviously, but you want to go?
Sure. The Texas PowerTree, it's a typical, like I was telling you earlier, in Houston, average house is about 50 or 60 solar panels. Because we live in the northern hemisphere, ideal solar installation is southwest. And again, your house most likely can accommodate the load, okay? Because the load is spread versus a dead load. The load is not an issue, but it's the space issue. So two trees will accommodate your house. 2 trees will accommodate your house. And so what we do is we plant the trees in the backyard, and we plant the trees in the backyard. And a lot of homes in Texas are has HOA. Well, right. By planting the trees in the backyard, it serves 2 purposes. One, HOA doesn't really play into HOA rules and guidelines, because if you decide to plant a tree in your backyard, they're fine with it. And then secondly, we install in the backyard for safety reasons, security reasons. Not just it's a new technology, and it's a new shiny toy, and we don't want people to come out and mess with your new shiny toy. So that's why we install it in the backyard.
Yeah. Now this is an example of a solar tree, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And what dictates and I know that earlier you used the term branch, so I'm assuming that this is what you term the branch to be, correct?
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
What determines how many branches a tree gets set? In other words, what's the maximum amount of branches? And then what's the relationship with the branches with the amount required for total capacity?
Yes. So what we're looking at here is the generation 1 tree, and so we're in the process of generation 2 trees, which is a lot more powerful. Is there a picture of
that one here somewhere?
The generation 2. I should have sent it to you. It's on my phone, and I can't.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. So what determines the branches is the the cells, the solar cells are on the branch.
Okay.
And so, so each branch, just depending, this second generation, I can tell you right now, second generation has 12 branches and they go 40, 60, and 80 cells per branch. Okay.
Okay.
And what's nice is you can plant our trees in any direction in your house. Okay.
Okay.
And versus the versus the southwest portion being the northern hemisphere,
Uh-huh.
and it will capture and harness the sun.
Okay. So what dictates the direction of the actual branch? Like some are facing that way, some are facing this way. Is
Well,
it
yeah. So the software that we use are yeah, they're very advanced software that we use. These are the same software products that car manufacturers use. Okay.
okay?
And so what it does, it determines and calculates everything as far as percentage, load, weight, wind load, and so on and so forth. So we design our branches per maximum sun exposure.
Okay.
Okay. And our software answers that. So one branch might be at a 30-degree angle. Another branch might be at a downward pitch of 50-degree angle. And it's
Okay.
all depends on and what it does is it's really interesting. We know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, at least it did today, right? And so every day it doesn't change. The only thing that changes is it going to be a sunny day? It's going to be a cloudy day. It's going to be an overcast day, and that's the only factor with this. And so to answer your question, our trees, 2 trees equals 50 to 60 solar panels. Okay, and
Really?
it will, yes, sir. That's amazing about it, and it's designed to get you off grid. Its primary purpose is off grid. Okay, we have a lot of clients that are farmers. Okay, and some like to be on the grid, some like to be off the grid, if you know what I'm talking about, especially in California. And so they like it because it's if the grid goes down, and we all know the grid goes down quite often here in Texas. Well, just in general, right?
Yeah.
You're off the grid. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You're off the grid, right? The only time that it does matter is if the battery gets depleted, right?
Right.
If the battery gets depleted. But our system, like I was telling you, we design a system that's about 110, 115% of your capacity on your hottest day. Okay, on your hottest month. So the rest of the time, it's getting stored in the battery, in the backup battery. And so, you mentioned Tesla and Elon Musk. I'm a big fan of Elon Musk, like I was telling you about Starlink and everything else, right? And so what's funny about Tesla is they've done a great job with marketing that, it doesn't matter what the name on the battery is, it all comes from one source, one region of the world. Majority of it does. Okay. That all comes from China, right? And so, and there's so many solar battery manufacturers, and also a lot of solar PVs, photovoltaic cells, come from that portion of the world. And so Tesla's batteries, we get this all the time. We want a Tesla battery. We want a Tesla battery. We want a Tesla battery. And we go, well, they're LiFePO, they're lithium phosphate, right? And so it's all the same. If you want to pay for the name, that's going to cost you 15 grand for a battery that comes from the same factory, versus versus a different company with a Chinese name. Yeah, it all comes from the same factory. They just changed the labels. It's a private label. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying that typically, let me throw out a number out there. 1,800 square foot home.
Uh-huh.
How many trees would we be looking at in a typical
We,
1,800 18
we
to
get
2?
that question quite a bit. The size of your house has no bearing. Okay, it's
Ah,
electrical consumption. So you might live in an 1,800 square foot house, right? And your neighbor might live in a 1,000 square foot house, and that 1,000 square foot house could consume double, triple of your 1,800 square foot house. Like you said, you have multiple computers, and so that plays into a lot of issues. We
yeah.
get that quite often, Daniel, in the sense like, okay, Martine, okay, Indy, our house is 1,800 square feet, and tell me how big of a system I need. I'm like, I don't know. We have to analyze your electrical consumption.
Okay.
Are you planning on installing a pool? Do you have a pool? Are you planning on having an EV? Do you have an EV?
Yeah.
Those are all consumption that requires a lot of consumption, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so the size of the house does not matter. It's the consumption is what matters.
Yeah. Let me see where my electric bill is here. I'm just out of curiosity. Hold
Sure,
on.
we'll be happy to analyze it for you.
Give me a sec. Well, I'm not completely gonna show it, but I'll throw out some numbers if I can find it. Let's see here. Hold on. Let me see if it's this one.
If I tell you what, if you can tell me what your monthly kWh is, I can tell you I can build you a system right away.
Let's see here.
I can tell you what size system you need.
All right, hold on.
And what month is it? So we're
I believe it's over 2,000 kW per month.
It's not
the
this
last
one.
time
Hold on.
but I don't know if that's his average.
Hold on.
so
Give me a
2,000.
second. Hold on.
Yeah, it's a
I'm
little
still
bit over
trying to
2,000.
find my electric bill. That wasn't it. Hold on. Hold on. I should have pulled it out before.
That's okay.
Let's see here. Come on.
Yeah, I'll forward you that link, or if Indy can, where it tells you what your average daily sun is for your state.
Yeah. All right. Well, hold on. Hold on.
It's so interesting. I grew up in Cincinnati, right? I grew
Yeah.
up in Ohio, and I have a lot of friends in Ohio, and they ask me all the time, like, "Hey, Martine, well, we want to install a solar system in our house," and my answer to them is, "No, don't,
Yeah.
because you don't get enough sun.
Yeah.
You don't get enough direct sun.
Yeah.
You don't get enough direct sun."
Let's see. I'm gonna find one here somewhere. I usually get mine online, so I think I don't get the detailed bill anymore, but I used to. Eh, if not, we can go for another day. Oh no, here it is. Maybe there's one here. Maybe. Yep, it's an old one, but it'll work. I think it is. All right.
Tell me what your total kWh is, and tell me what your total electric bill is for that month, and I'll tell you what the cost per watt is.
All right. Let's see here. It was $500.
Okay.
And
Even?
no, it was 518. Electric.
Okay.
It says energy consumption 2,436 kWh.
Okay, divided by 518. 518 divided by, what is it? 2,000.
2,436 kilowatt hours.
See, that's crazy. So you're paying 21 cents. You're paying a 21 cents PPW per price per watt. Okay. And when we started doing business in Texas in 19, and in 19, when we started, PPW price per watt in Texas was about 8 to 12 cents.
Now keep in mind that 518 includes waste and water.
Oh, okay.
So I need to be clear about
so it's
that.
not accurate. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, basically the total charge, I'll tell you, it says customer service charge was $6.94. Energy consumption was the energy consumption 2,436 kWh. That totaled $157.86. Then there's a fuel and energy charge of
Mm-hmm.
0.07708, and that was 187.77. Taxes was $7. So the total electricity charges just for electric was $359.62.
359 to 62
Yeah. Yeah.
divided by 2436.
Yeah.
Okay, yours isn't so bad now. And now it's 15 cents a watt
That's about
PPW.
what I think it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Because and Texas consumes so much energy compared to, let's say, California, that there is no tier level in Texas. So if you use 1 kWh or if you use 10,000 kWh, they charge you the same PPW rate. Unlike California, if you use, it goes tier 1, 2, 3, and are you kidding? Tier 4, you need to we're going to whack you, right?
Yeah.
And then also, what's nice about Texas is there's no my mind's going blank all of a sudden. It's time of day usage. Excuse me, time of day usage. Time of day usage is anywhere from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. when everybody's home. Okay, time of day usage. And what's nice is Texas doesn't have time of day usage. Okay, so I calculated your system, and the system that your house based on the 800, based on the 2436 is a 20 kW system, 20 kWh system. So yes, 2 trees will accommodate you, which is pretty standard in Texas.
Now, keep in mind that I do have a pool, so that includes my monthly pool costs there as well. So,
Sure.
hypothetically, well, the other things for some of us pool owners is my swimming pool didn't come with a heating system. And even though I know it's 70, 80 degrees during December, I really can't jump in the pool during that time because it's cold. The water is cold. So the options
You're a
that
polar bear.
yeah, no, it's all right. You know, it's pretty cold. So the question that I have is factoring in the pool and considering that I want to heat the pool. Well, first of all, is solar energy a viable solution for heating a pool? I mean, I know there's natural gas, there's propane, there's buy the old solar blankets and lay them on the water, and they claim to up the temperature by about 15 degrees.
And then there's also solar water heaters that's installed on top of your roof. But the problem with that, Daniel, is there's no space.
Right.
It's a give and take. So your roof only has so much space per square foot, right?
Yeah.
And so, do you want to use that valuable space for heating your hot water for your pool, or do you want to use that valuable space to provide AC load for your house?
Right. No, I was just wondering. I mean, I've honestly, as much as I would love to have a heated pool, I don't really plan on being in the pool during the so-called winter months. But I was just curious about that because I've looked at different alternatives in case I wanted to heat my pool, and I was just wondering about solar. So you're saying that for my typical house, I'm looking at 2 solar trees.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Wow. And they don't look ugly. I mean, they really don't. I mean, I really think they're aesthetically pleasing, Now, Indy, I know that you do business down here in this area. how soon are you offering this as a viable solution?
Immediately. We can offer it already and we can start financing. And
Yeah.
what we do is by the time we deliver the trees in December, January, and
Uh,
Martin can tell you when the first shipping coming in from Philippines will come, we will pay your electric bill for the next couple months until we actually get it installed. Is that correct,
wow.
Martin?
That is correct. That is correct. So we're the only one, yeah, from what I understand, our company is the only company that, you know, you know, there's a terminology. It's called writing the check. Okay. We write the check. Okay. We stand behind our products, right? One thing I learned in the Marine Corps, you stand by your word. And if you say something, do it. If you do, and so that's what we do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, so if you were to install a system, Daniel, right? Um, we would we would take over your electric bill until your system is turned on. What's nice about the power trees, Daniel, is this: because we're not contributing to the grid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no PTO, permission to operate, is required. And right now, PTOs on traditional conventional rooftops are anywhere from 4 months to 8 months out
Mm-hmm.
after installation.
Wow.
Yeah. And the thing about that, okay, is your system is already harnessing energy, right? So it's 4 to 6 months, 4 to 8 months out of free electric to the utility company on the AC load.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because once it's turned on, once it's installed, it's got the energy's got to go somewhere,
Right.
right? And it all goes back to the grid. So it's all
Okay.
designed to go back to the grid. And that's why, we get a lot of homeowners that are so frustrated because, hey, Martin, our system got installed 7 months ago, our rooftop system, and we're still not connected. Why? And it's like, well, honestly, most likely because the utility company is getting free electric and they're going to delay it as long as they can.
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned that. There was a person on Facebook that's been on a few podcasts in the last few months, and she was getting um, a solar solution installed. I have no idea from who the company was, but apparently the local utility company here, PUB, was stalling the completion of the installation, and I don't know why. I don't know if she ever got it done, but it was very frustrating for her because
Uh, I'll
she
tell you
went.
why. I'll tell you why. Due to COVID, we're down to 10% workload, and so that's their excuse, at least. And it's crazy. It takes literally 5 minutes to read the prints, the plans, look at the pictures, look at the schematics, look at the drawing, look at the final installation, and go, yeah, everything looks good. Boom. Okay, you're turned on. There's your PTO, right? And and it's I mean, if you're a utility company and you're getting help from a homeowner with free from on your AC load, I mean, what's your incentive to get a PTO to that address?
Mhm.
You know, really nothing.
Right, right.
Because now all of a sudden, okay, we turn you on from a utility point of view on the ERCOT or so. Okay, now we have to pay you for all the excess energy as well.
Right, right, right. Wow.
In my opinion, at least, yeah, in my opinion, and
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure she got everything squared away. I haven't heard any more complaints, but I don't know who the company was she was dealing with. It was just very frustrating for her. So let's talk about a scenario. We've gone about an hour here, but let's talk about just a real life scenario. I mean, Martine, as here in Texas, about a year and a half or so ago, we had electrical outages,
Uh huh.
quite a bit all over the state.
Uh-huh.
And I'll be honest with you, I was without electricity for 4 days. I was freezing. Me, my daughter, and my wife, and my three dogs, and my cat, we all slept in the same room trying to bundle up because it was really cold.
Yes, sir.
So, in a situation like that, where obviously there is electrical outages, from the grid itself, for a person that chooses this as an alternative, okay, uh, what, how down would they be? In other words, I know that it was cold. I can't recall how many days of that cold sunlight was actually there. What is, in a situation like that, what is the minimal amount of sunlight required to keep you on in an event like that?
If your system is designed to be off grid,
Uh-huh.
the key word is off grid, then you're not affected because you're an independent. Basically, in the fanciest of terms, Daniel, you are your own utility company if you're off grid.
Okay.
Okay, and it gets replenished every day when the sun comes up,
Okay.
and then the batteries are there to help you through during the evening.
Yeah. Because that's one of the things, after all was said and done, after those 4 days of torture, and I'll call it torture, uh, there was decisions that I was thinking of contemplating. One thing was to go out and get a generator. I mean, you have no idea how many times I've been wanting to get a generator, and I just put it off, and I put it off, and I put it off, because I can't justify the expense of a generator sitting there 90% of the time doing nothing. And you've got to use those things, otherwise they get stuck. I think the parts get all screwed up. But so, even though I said I was gonna go get a generator, I didn't do it. Okay, I said, I don't need one after all. But it was a serious situation. I mean, we were freezing our tails off, and so, for most of us that were connected to the normal grid, I mean, we were screwed. So,
You're especially if you have health issues, Daniel. I mean, if you
yeah,
have a family member that has health issues
yeah.
and they have to be on oxygen and there's no electricity to power it, of course, it's a very real and scary scenario.
Yeah. I mean, you don't even have to be like really sick. I mean, a lot of guys, especially males, they suffer from sleep apnea. They require a CPAP machine. A day
Yeah.
without that CPAP machine, you'll end up feeling like you had a bad hangover the day after. So, I mean, I wasn't able to use the CPAP machine for 4 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I get it. I mean, I get it. There's other people with more serious ailments, oxygen,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So, um, I was just curious, in a scenario like that, like we had here in Texas a year and a half ago, how a typical homeowner who chose the solar option, obviously, if it's the traditional or the solar tree, would they fare any better than somebody like me that
Um,
was just sitting here?
if
I,
your solar system is connected to the grid and the grid goes down, you're out of power.
yeah,
Okay. If you're not connected to the grid and the grid goes down, all of a sudden you're going to get knocks on your door because your neighbors want to come in and warm up.
yeah, or charge their phone.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep. Charge it.
yeah,
Yep. Absolutely.
yeah,
Or they see an outlet outside and they're like, oh wait, hang on. Daniel won't mind because we have no power. So let me piggyback off of his.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, this is a great solution. I mean, I like it. It's aesthetically pleasing. I'll be honest with you. I've never liked the traditional solar panels, only because, they're just mounted a certain way. And so this is really aesthetically pleasing. And if you say
Thank you.
they hold, or they do just as well as the traditional, I mean, I think it's a great alternative to what we've seen here in the past.
Yeah,
So,
and And like I said, we're in the process of our generation two, the generation Gen 2, and it's actually we're we're using we're capturing two forms of clean natural energy. We
Yeah.
will be.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
which we're super excited about.
Yeah, I, had a few people on the podcast I was on last week. They were kind of challenging me about solar energy, but then they were pretty opinionated on anything other than oil. So, and
Yeah.
I'm not look, don't get me wrong, I'm not an anti-oil person. I'm not. But obviously the moment that I said solar and wind, it was like it ruffled their feathers. And so, I took a little heat last week for it, but
Oh yeah. Sorry. No, you know what's so interesting, Daniel? I was with it was we had I had a team of uh, solar, a team of a company, right? They flew in last week, last Thursday morning. I picked them up at the airport at Bush at 11, and they flew back out at 6. Right?
uh,
They came out just to meet with us, just to meet with me with the trees and try to ink a deal. And I think we did. But what was interesting is we went down to some job sites in Manville, right? And like I said, I've only been there a couple of years, and I live in Kingwood, and the only routes I know is to the airport,
yeah,
right? So I'm not too familiar. And so we were driving on from Manziel back to Bush Airport. Is that the 45 or the 10? I'm not quite sure.
45.
And
45.
45.
Yeah.
Okay. And right where the bay was, where all the refineries were.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and I showed them, and I go, look, Luke, one of the owners, his name was Luke. I said, Luke, check this out. Look at all that smoke, and then from the distance there, you could see a fire hydrant cooling down all the coals.
Right.
And all the coals were, and then the power plant was right there, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, check this out. They're cooling down the coal so that way it won't because of the fumes.
Right.
How healthy is that? Yeah. And so he took a video of it, and next time you go down the 45 or so, right by where the bay, you know what I'm talking about?
Right.
By Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah. By Nassau
Right.
or so.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
in that area.
Yeah.
And you'll see, you'll see all the outdoor coal being stored.
Yeah.
And when it's very hot, you'll see fire hydrants everywhere cooling the coal down.
Yeah. Well, I
Because
told
of
these
all the
folks,
fumes.
I told these folks in that podcast, I said, look, let's get real. Because, they're saying, oh, solar doesn't work. And I was saying, well, my word was BS, right? It does work. And the reason we know it works is because we have a space station up there that is running by solar power. We have a Hubble telescope that's running by solar power. We have the James Webb telescope millions of miles away, powered by solar power. Our rovers that are right now in Mars running around are running by solar power. So don't tell me that solar power doesn't work. If it works in Mars, surely it can work here on Earth. It's just with the willingness to make it happen. Nobody's saying we're going to replace oil. Nobody's advocating we're going to replace oil. But we do have to find renewable sources of energy. We just have to. We have to look
There's
at
so
all the
many
viable
clean.
alternatives,
Yeah, sorry. There's so many clean renewable energy. I mean, you got hydro,
Yeah.
you have wind, you have sun,
And nuclear.
nuclear, yeah.
And nuclear.
And nukes, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, the
Yeah,
only
it's so
reason,
funny.
the only reason
Uh-huh.
why nuclear has gotten a bum rap is because of 3 Mile Island and the
Yes.
Chernobyl and the plant
Yes.
there in Japan. But if
Yeah,
you look on
Fukushima, yeah.
yeah, if you look on average over the life of nuclear power plants and how long they've been in existence, the accident rate is pretty low.
Yeah.
But I get it. I understand. Nobody wants a Chernobyl in their backyard. But, nuclear is there. It's clean. I mean, there is the talk about the waste, but I've heard of other companies out there that are doing some innovative things to try to handle that waste so it doesn't end up in some kind of, concrete sealed landfill somewhere in Arizona. But I mean, I really believe that solar energy is doable. And if it's good for Mars, it's good for Earth. I just,
Correct.
that's
Correct.
just my opinion. But
Correct.
definitely, guys, this is very interesting. I know that Indy is pretty active with regards to this, and this is going to be something great here, especially for this area. As we look at alternatives, I mean, there's people out here really dissatisfied with their utility rates right now. I mean, there are
Yeah. I
folks here
mean,
that have to pay either their light bill or their insulin, their baby formula or their light bill. It's just crazy.
and it's what's crazy is the electric bills you're handcuffed. Okay.
Yeah.
You might be paying a couple years ago, you're paying 8 cents ppw. Now you're paying 16, 17 cents ppw. And what are you going to do now? Because if you're tied into the grid, you're at their mercy.
Right.
And so the solution, a possible solution, is get off the grid.
Right.
Hey, hey, ERCOT, here's what's really interesting before we go, Daniel, is not a lot of people know this. Okay. The reason being is because utility companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars to keep you on the grid. Okay. To keep you on the grid. You can legally go off the grid in Texas, California, Arizona. Okay. And there's Title 29 and Title 19 in California, which allows you to get off the grid. And it's so funny. Earlier during the year, you saw commercials from ERCOT, from the governor, saying, "Hey, help us out. Do what you can to ease the grid." They didn't want to tell you legally you can get off the grid, but
Right.
they help us out how you can. So one thing we do is we get you off the grid. And it's like, leave me alone. We don't want, we have our power, too bad that the grid's down. Sorry, neighbor, sorry, Tom and Mary, sorry.
Yeah. Well, definitely this is a neat solution. Indy, where can they reach you? Customers down here. I mean,
I'm in Bronzeville. They can reach me on my phone number. It's 832-640 8884.
Okay.
And I can send you my business card.
Okay. Do you have a website now or no? Do you have a website?
It's the same one for Southwest Solar.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, it's southwestsolarstores.com.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great, guys. I really am really thrilled about this. I know this is going to be a good alternative. I really appreciate the time that you've spent.
We appreciate the invite.
I'm sorry that I asked too many questions.
No. We always one thing we always tell when we talk to homeowners or commercial owners, the gauge of your interest is based on the amount of questions you have.
Right.
And the value of your questions,
Right.
And your questions are very valuable, Daniel. Right?
Yeah.
And so, for Texas, Southwest Solar Stores is hard to remember. Just Google Texas PowerTrees, and that takes you right to our landing page.
Yeah.
It's Texas PowerTrees.
A lot of the questions that I asked you guys was based on some of the responses that I got after our initial podcast, Indy. So I kind of promised as a follow-up that we would get some of those things clarified. But obviously there's new technology here that you guys are presenting from the last time. And once again, you guys are always welcome on this show. If you've got something new coming up, I pick me first here.
Let's circle back. Let's circle back in January when we have our first shipment coming in. And
right. Maybe
And
we
you'll
can
be
do a live demo or installation somewhere. I mean,
absolutely. We'll do it at your house.
nothing is better than seeing it work, and so we could do that. We could take the show live on the road. So
The old put up or shut up. Absolutely.
yeah. All right, guys. Well, I
Thank you,
appreciate
Daniel.
you guys being on the show. Everybody, I hope that you guys tune in tonight. And if you didn't tune in tonight, you can catch us on one of the 6 networks. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Daniel.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Martin. Bye bye.